Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have a message for you, and you're not going to like it. It's the Kill by Kill Pod. I don't think that went well. Hey, greetings and salutations to the internet. Your old pal Patrick Hamilton coming to you once again from an abandoned church in downtown Los Angeles. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we are dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. Now we're going to unpack all the gory details of John Carpenter's 1987 classic, Prince of Darkness, in the hopes that a grad student's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes that we can make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust, that when I pass away comfortably in my sleep, she will pass the key that I keep on my chest at all times. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Well, I regret to tell you that I bring no skills to this particular endeavor.
What kind of skills do you need for this endeavor?
I don't know how to read Latin.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I don't know how carbon dating things works.
Okay. Well, the computer does most of that. You could collect some samples. I have faith in you.
I'm pretty useless.
I don't see that as true at all. I would totally take you on a mission that will get almost all of my students killed. That sounds like a great plan. That will have zero repercussions. At the end of this, there's a shot of them like wheeling dead bodies out, and I'm wondering, how the fuck do any of them explain this to the cops? Like we were studying a column of liquid, and then a lot of people died.
They all just went crazy and killed each other. It happens.
It happens. Things get crazy when you're doing experiments and such. But I don't want to alarm you, Gina. We are not alone. That's right. We have a special guest. Of course, he is one half of PredictoCast. He's a returning champion here to Kill by Kill. And of course, he's our main source of art on the show. In fact, I would say he's the third longest member of the Kill by Kill team. The one, the only, Josh Hollis. How are you doing today, Josh?
I am doing great, and I'm super honored to be on this episode. I know that Susan, the radiologist with glasses, she dropped out, and I was very happy to step in her place.
I was heartbroken because, as we all know, she was on Days of Our Lives as a Brady sister, and that means so much to me. But I'm glad that you could step up to the plate.
I do like the running gag of Susan, who? The brunette with glasses, and I as a brunette with glasses, I felt that deep inside my soul.
And yet, when she crawls into your bunk in the middle of the night, you're like, listen, I'm not into. Well, maybe I'm not into it. Maybe I am into it.
She goes to that demonic makeover, loses those glasses.
This poor lass really gets it coming and going. I mean, she's introduced at one point being sexually harassed by someone who knows that she's married. It's super fucking weird.
Oh yeah, that guy, Frank, very cool dude. I have to get this out of the way first.
Sure.
I fucking love this movie, man. I every time someone mentions it, I'm like, oh, I really love that movie. And then I watch it again, and I'm like, I really love this movie. This might be my favorite John Carpenter movie.
I can completely understand it. I fucking love this movie too. I saw it in movie theaters at the AMC Burbank back when it was just 10 in a location that is now a parking structure. And I got it right away. Like, I was totally zoned in on what it was. And in watching it all the years since, I've only gained appreciation for it. I don't quite understand those who might consider it lesser Carpenter when in fact it is mainline great Carpenter.
Yeah, and it's for me, I hold it up with David Lynch movies, and I don't know how to exactly explain what happens in it.
Yeah, right,
but sure. I'm into it anyway. I'm feeling it.
It's very distilled. Prince of Darkness may be the most John Carpenter film. It's all of the specters of his religious upbringing and in the Kentucky, Tennessee area. I think it's Tennessee that he grew up in. But it's also this thirst of knowledge he has for computers and the sciences and what he was reading at the time. but it's also like a hangout movie that becomes Assault on Precinct 13 with a massive dose of like zombie movies and British Quatermass. Like, it's just all of his little passions wrapped up in one $3 million ball.
Also starring some of the cast of Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes, he rescues some great cast members from Big Trouble in Little China.
I have an amazing story about this movie. So in 2019, in the before times, I was lucky enough to go to a screening of this in the church where they filmed it.
What?
Oh,
yeah.
And it was incredible. Like, obviously they, have sets and things for the tomb stuff underground, but like the church was, the big main room where they're all set up, that was inside the church, and the outside, of course. But yeah, there was I think it was like a theater troupe or something that they hold classes and stuff there. And they did a screening like right before Halloween in 2019, and they had it like decked out. They had the like crucified bird thing set up in the alleyway that you could walk around, and like it was slightly different. The church was slightly different from the way that it was when they filmed it, but for the most part, it was pretty much just like you would expect it to be from the movie. And I think even to that point, I had always thought that this was really good, and I really liked it. But just watching it then, it clicked with how much sort of dread and menace from like the first minute of the movie is just, it permeates throughout the whole thing. Like there's never a moment where it feels like it lets up. Like the music stops, I think, for like half a second about 9 minutes in, and then it picks back up again.
Yeah.
Like you don't have any, like, there's no way to breathe. It's like oppressive, but in a good way.
There's 2 hours of music for a movie that is only 141 minutes long. So just to let everyone know where John Carpenter was when it comes to this particular theme. It's just unending. Something that a couple of film critics were not happy about. This seems to have confounded a lot of people. Roger Ebert amongst them. He was just kind of like, I like the ideas, but I don't know what's going on here. And then supposedly these people are smart, and yet they're wandering off. It's like, they don't have to be observed, dude. They're grad students and professors. Like, they can go to the bathroom by themselves. They don't know they're in a fucking horror movie, Roger.
Right. I mean, they don't go into this knowing that, it's a big thermos full of devil juice.
Yeah, and even when they discover it's a thermos of devil juice, they don't all automatically believe it from the get-go, because who the fuck would? As I mentioned earlier, this movie was made for $3 million. This comes off the heels of the sort of box office disaster, which unfortunately was Big Trouble in Little China. And listen, Big Trouble, I like it on a personal level. There's some confusing bits to it and all, but it really landed in one of the busiest fucking summers of all time, including right in the middle of the releases of Top Gun, Aliens, Cronenberg's version of The Fly, and even Friday the 13th Part 6. So like, it didn't really arrive, in an empty spot. And one of the campaigns for it, its main campaign, was asking, who is this lead character? They were just like, who is Jack Burton? And that was supposed to get people to show up to a fucking movie theater.
Yeah. It's paralleled with the Thing, which implausibly, given what the classic that it is now, flopped in the theater because it opened at the same time as E.T. and America was not interested in seeing monstrous aliens.
They were not. It's certainly not a mere month and change after E.T. had landed. And E.T. is a movie that, it's not like today where like you have about a month worth of time before you're relegated to rerun theaters. E.T. was in theaters for a year and a half. It just kept going.
Yep.
Man, I miss those days of like being like a kid. I remember this specifically with something like Titanic, which seemed to be in theaters for like 2.5 years. Right, it felt like it just never left. And nowadays it's like, oh, it's this cool movie's playing this weekend. Well, it's gone now. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. You see it from the first 2 weeks, or you're fuck off. I mean, you wait for it to come out in DVD in a month.
Yeah, exactly. So he makes Big Trouble in Little China, and he's once again fucked over by his studio, because Christine was a pretty decent hit. Like, he had momentum. So when he sold Fox on Big Trouble, he got a big budget to do a lot of things with, and it just didn't fire. Now, of course, its reputation has been rescued over time, but that says everything about every John Carpenter movie, with the exception of Vampires, which genuinely sucks. So say that Carpenter felt fucked on that film is a real understatement. So his response was to make a deal with a guy named Shep Gordon. Shep Gordon was a music producer and a concert promoter, and by all accounts, a very nice guy. And he wanted to get in the movie business, and he thought that the best way to always make a profit was to do horror. He said it was the best bet in town. So long as you kept the budget reasonable, you could make money doing it. And of course, we now know that is the prevailing attitude towards horror. He was just ahead of the curve. So for $3 million, Carpenter could do whatever he wanted. So he went back to the same well of The Thing, The End of Days. And this time it would be a metaphysical anti-god that dwells in the pocket universe of antimatter. And all he needs is for its son, who's been self-contained within a barrel of murder Slurpee, to open the door to the other dimension in which he dwells. And that's Prince of Darkness in, pretty much a nutshell. Gina, where can people find you on these heroes?
You distilled it down really well, but like, even just hearing that, I'm like, man, I love that. I love how hokey that is, but also like this weird idea of mixing the science with the supernatural and the spirituality, and like just cramming all that together in ways that don't totally make sense, but like still, I'm this weird, I think there's lots of people like me probably who maybe grew up in religious households, but have since kind of moved on and done their own thing, and, kind of figured out whatever they believe in. And I don't really, I don't really believe in anything. I guess I'm sort of between agnostic and atheist, but like, I still have this fondness for satanic based horror films. So like something like this,
100%, me too.
It like Race with the Devil, like anything that has like satanic cults or like weird like satanic overtones. For some reason, I'm just like all in. I love those. They hit some weird thing in me, whether it's like the repressed religious urges that are still there and deep in my mind, and it's tapping into those things. But yeah, I love all of that. Like that weird idea that the anti-god walked the earth, millions of years ago, and he put his son in this thing and buried it. And then Jesus is an alien that came to earth to try to stop him, and the people didn't like it, so they killed Jesus. And like, it's just like so insane, but I love all of it.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that this is often left out of conversations about religious horror. And I don't know if it's because it's so particularly bleak about it.
Yeah.
Basically the movie more or less, you think that they have saved the day, and then you realize, nope, this is still happening. They may have
delayed it, but it was always going to happen.
This is still going to be a thing that's going to happen in the year 1999.
Weirdly, it may have all been a trick for it to happen in 1999. That's what it kind of proposes, is like, oh, we got you all here and you thought you were going to do something, but what you did was seal your own fate. Is what it's proposing.
I love that. And Gina, you saying the 1999 thing. I knew that before I'd ever seen the movie, because that is sampled on an album by DJ Shadow that came out, I think, in like 96 or something, 2006. I can't remember exactly, but he uses all of the transmissions as like little interludes between songs. And so I remembered hearing that and not knowing what it was from until I saw the movie like a couple of years later, and then was like, oh, that's where that's from. Cause he's just using samples throughout. the album, and he does those transmissions like in full throughout the album.
Josh, I just love the very idea that you learned about this movie through an album, and I bought a ticket to this R-rated film by myself. Oh my God, I'm so fucking old. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this one I did not see in the theater. I think this one was on cable for me.
It kind of lived there, and it has a weird different opening the cable version because they had to shorten a little bit, so they truncate that opening credits down to its bare essence, which is there's a vat of ectoplasm cooler that's super pissed off, and Donald Pleasance is aware of it, and then there's a guy named Brian who's a grad student who is constantly leering at a redhead. And that's the only part of the movie that does not work for me. Oh, yeah.
This sort of like forced romance between these two characters who literally just meet that same day. Or yeah, I'll be a little more charitable, the day before.
Yeah, sure.
Were they not in class together, or is this class just starting? I thought they knew each other kind of like loosely because they were in class together, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think they're aware of one another, but don't really know one another.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't totally clear to me. I was just kind of caught up in like how hunky Jameson Parker is and how he fills out that polo in that first shot of him. You're like, man, he's a hunky dude. And this is probably is also some weird repressed stuff that I have to figure out. But he kind of looks like my dad, who I don't really know. So.
Oh, okay, hold on, Josh. Let's get you in contact with some people. We can walk this.
Are you guys sponsored by BetterHelp this week on the show?
Are you attracted to someone who could have been your dad but probably wasn't because he was on television at the time? Well, BetterHelp is here for you. Yeah, he's got a weird. Constantly leering porn stashed presence.
I think it's the mustache. I think that's what does it.
That stash is distracting.
He is.
Because it looks fake in a couple of shots, and I don't think that it is, but it's just so big and full and like perfect, and you're just like, is that real? I don't know.
It doesn't belong on his face. It looks like it crawled on there and made a home, and he's like, oh, I'll just roll with it. You know?
I don't think a graduate student has that much time for facial hair grooming.
Yeah, seriously, it would be a full beard. Like I feel like Dirk Blocker as Mullins looks more like the kind of grad student you would expect.
100%. Yeah, he's like a second away from just like smashing a beer can on his forehead.
He looks like he's rolled out of bed and into class every scene he's in. He just does not look like he slept and does not have a great diet.
But that's way more accurate than Jameson Parker in like his pressed polo and Dockers.
Yes.
It's a real odd look.
He's a grad student for this science program, but it looks like he's a football player or something. Like a quarterback.
Yeah, well, the camera spends a lot of time examining his chest, and I'll go out and like, it's fine. But it's also not like, oh my God, look at this.
Hey man, he was fit goals for me. So,
but he's a weird actor presence because like the only way I kind of known him previous to this was that I was aware he was on a TV show called Simon and Simon, which I was shocked to discover premiered on television before Magnum PI, because Simon & Simon feels very much like an executive going, go make me one of those Magnum PIs. It just does not have any significant cultural impact.
That was him and Major Dad, right? Gerald McRaney.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
That show was on for a long time from what I can see here. 81 to 89, which is mind-boggling.
I mean, 1989. Can you imagine? Miami Vice is on the air in full, and they're still like, I don't know, one more season of Simon and Simon? Sure, why not? What do we have to lose?
And then one of the other actors in it, the actor who gets impaled on the bicycle, was on a TV show that was essentially a ripoff of Simon and Simon.
It was also two brothers.
Yes.
A completely different Get Me a Magnum PI show called Riptide.
Yeah, and he was once again the nerdy sidekick.
He owned a robot He owned a
Oh.
robot, and I think the brothers had a big helicopter. Again, I did not watch this show. I was just aware of its existence. And the only thing I was really aware of is they had a big helicopter, and this guy, Tom Bray, owned a robot on the show. So that's all that impacted my child brain. And I think it's worth
Amazing.
noting that, yes, it's a part of Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy. So it's kind of the second between The Thing and In the Mouth of Madness, which also have a thread of the enemy is always from beyond and hiding right underneath our feet. Like it's been here for a really long time. It's just this time it happens to be a column of pissed off ectoplasm cooler. The other thing that is worth noting is that this is Carpenter's most European film by a long shot. It is serious Bava, Argento, Fulci vibes throughout, despite its downtown LA setting.
Oh man, Frank's Murder feels like a Giallo film. Like the shots
Yes.
of the knife and the everything that's happening, the faraway shots of the lady running up. Like I was like, oh man, he just did his own little mini Giallo right here for this one murder scene.
It's straight out of Suspiria 78. It's the killing of the blind piano player who has a dog who runs off. And then all of a sudden the dog comes out of nowhere and bites his throat out. It's like very, very much the same as that. And it's not to say that he's lifting. It's just you can tell the influence of how he wanted to bring this across. And you have all that gothic attitude coming across with the layer of the column and the candles, despite it being filmed in what's been described as a crumbling basement in Long Beach, California.
I was curious about that. Like, did someone go in and light all those candles before the team showed up, or were they just lit when the priest goes down there?
Yeah, it does look a little bit like a hair metal video.
But
not in a bad way.
I think
in something
like this is a set for Meatloaf, like a Meatloaf video. Like,
like he'll do anything for love, but he won't be a vessel for Satan.
Yes,
he will not take a load from Satan in the face.
The other elements that I think are interesting with this film is, and really all of Carpenter's, over. Since we're not, as far as I'm aware, Gina, we're not going to be invited on to Blank Check to talk John Carpenter for the back half of the year. I assume like anything could happen, but probably not.
Probably not. I'm not penciling in space on my schedule for it.
Yeah. We're cool. We're not that cool. But Carpenter's always in conversation with himself from project to project. So he's coming off of a very Asian cinema influenced big budget action flick. And so he downshifts here into something that's more personal, but he brings with him Victor Wong and Dennis Dunn and puts them in very different reflective roles of where they were before. Victor Wong was a person who knew a lot about Chinese mythology and, sorcery. And here he is a scientific professor who seems to know all about how everything you think is very, very wrong. And Dennis Dunn is doing weird Jewish mother jokes. So
and apparently struggling with his sexuality.
Yeah. That's the one improv I liked. Some of the other Dennis Dunn bon mots don't quite weather as well.
Yeah, that's the only thing I think. Like, I wasn't as put off by the romance between Brian and Catherine as quick as it is, but some of Dennis Dunn's jokes, I think wore on me a little bit, especially towards the end of the movie.
Yeah,
like I feel like it's okay towards the beginning, but once like shit gets real, I feel like that stuff has to stop. And
he never at any point never really seems scared
until he freaks out, until he has
even then that kind of
crazy hissy fit.
Even then it kind of feels a little like slapsticky.
Uh-huh.
But like he is hiding in this closet and like looking out at them, and he keeps talking to them.
Yeah,
and it's like you should just be quiet and wait for them to go away. If you are hiding from someone who may very well kill you in a horrible manner, you're not going to be saying stuff like, "Oh, normally I like being dominated by women."
He needed a cigar to twirl around.
Yeah, you would be like crouching down, trying not to cry, and making peace with your God, and not coming off like the Vlasic Pickle Stork.
When is the Vlasic Pickle Stork getting a major motion picture role? Like, why can't that guy make it in this town?
I mean,
He's good enough commercials.
Jerry Seinfeld's writing a fucking movie about the invention of the Pop-Tart, so why not, get the Vlasic Pickle Stork his own franchise? If those two guys could do a two-hander, I think we could make $1 billion. I think that would be great. The other thing here, it has always kind of bugged me a little bit, but has a redeeming quality to it, is that Prince of Darkness kind of exploits a lot of stereotypes about the unhoused in downtown LA.
Yeah.
But in response to this, like, I'm sure Carpenter, felt a very certain way about doing this, but in the very next film he does, he humanizes every unhoused person in downtown LA, and they live.
True.
It's not like he's one of those directors who kind of learned along the way and isn't afraid to show his work. And that's what I think is part of what elevates him above some of his contemporaries in this fashion. Craven is the same. He's always having conversations with himself in his films, but Carpenter really loves to show that work.
Maybe Carpenter is just adding to how bad Satan is, since it's Satan's doing that is possessing all of these people, the unhoused people, to do his bidding. He's like, look how bad Satan is, taking advantage of these people.
They don't even notice a lot of bugs on their face. They're really absorbed in their world. But let's get into some of our characters here that don't have obscene mustaches. Let's start with the man, the myth, the legend, Donald Pleasance, here playing Priest. Just Priest.
The probably most useless character in this entire movie. And my favorite part is at the end where they're taking him away and he's like, I did it. I saved everyone.
I mean, he did throw that axe and break the mirror, but yes, it is very funny that he's like, I did it. I did it.
I'll take that commendation now.
Is the Pope going to give me a medal?
I mean, really, it was Catherine, sacrificing herself by leaping into the mirror that saved everyone.
Yes, of course.
She's doing a full-on football tackle, sacrificing not just her life, but quite possibly her soul, and condemning herself to whatever existence is in this other dimension, which I think about a lot. That shot of her reaching towards the light in complete darkness. Kiddos, when I have quiet moments, when the world seems too much and the darkness creeps in, that is the image that I think about.
Oh, this whole movie is just it is one big long nightmare, and that's why I compare it to like David Lynch. Like I would say like Lost Highway. No idea what's going on in that movie. I think anybody that tries to explain it is just going to sound like they're talking out their ass after a little while. But it just feels like you are caught in a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And that's what this feels like.
Yes, very much so. Pleasance forgoes his usual I eat while acting routine, which helps him make sure that he's in all the scenes that he films, because they can't cut around him eating. Every time I see him on screen now, I'm like, hey, is he eating? Is he eating? This time he goes for cross clutching. He's forever clutching a cross. And he's constantly afraid. And the weird thing is that, like, he's kind of right the whole time, which is weird for a John Carpenter film, to have at least one person who's like, no, I figured this out. And everyone's like, let's run it through the computer. He's like, I don't need it, man. We're all going down.
He gives great concerned face throughout this movie.
And it's fun to watch him go back and forth with Victor Wong, who's playing Professor Barack. And, Wong's like one of those big highlights from Little Trouble And it's super fun to see him occupy this sort of role as that elastic minded, science professor in college. He's always wearing a suit that it looks like he slept in, and he's carrying a suitcase, which is far too big for him. I could watch the two of them talk for hours. I just find it endlessly entertaining watching those two bounce off each other.
Yeah, you would think these are the parts going to be the boring parts, but it's, still managed to be weirdly fascinating.
Yeah, because it tries to explain these very ideas in both religious and scientific means, where they're trying to, because there's something they can't quite, neither of them can quite explain. They're trying to meet their philosophies in the middle to try to find some center to hold on to. And that's really fun to fucking watch and listen to. Like, those guys explaining these way out freaky concepts is a lot more palatable than, let's say, Jameson Parker's Brian, who like spends a lot of time talking like he's a jokester, but all his jokes are sexism is funny. But his penis is magic. So what the fuck do I know? And then, of course, there's the apple of Brian's eye, and that is lady scientist Catherine Danforth, played by Lisa Blount. She's kind of given a weird something but nothing role. Like, I do wish she was more active rather than looking at a computer screen and going, I don't know what the fuck this means.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's like, I don't know if the ending is to kind of give her like a larger, thing to do and like make her sort of the hero basically of the movie. But yeah, she doesn't do a ton. Like it seems weird because in that like sort of the second half when they're fighting all the possessed people inside the church, she sort of disappears from the movie for a little bit, and you like kind of forget that she's there until she shows up and sort of sees what's going on, and she spends most of her time trying to break that wall apart to get Walter through.
Yeah. So it's not like she's around. It's just, it would have been nice to see her character, who's obviously has a thought in her head, express those thoughts or get into the debate. But a lot of that sort of back and forth, it either happens between, Victor Wong and Donald Pleasance, or Victor Wong and Jameson Parker. It's like, why can't she be a part of this? It's weird that she's only a love interest up until the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, we don't really get any sort of reason as to why she would feel so passionately. It's like, okay, it's me. I'm the one who has to sacrifice myself.
Yeah, she just like looks at Jameson getting choked out and looks at Kelly reaching through a mirror and pulling out the devil from Legend's hand, vat of mercury, and going, I don't know, I think I got to gang tackle this bitch. And just, instead of just pushing her, like she could have just elbowed her into the other side. She has to gang tackle her. But you know what? It's her decision in the moment. Who's to say what decision we would make? Like,
I just felt that if we given, and I think one issue with the movie is, it is a minor one, but I think there may be a little bit of a surplus of characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. That's
and they
valid.
And they do have some characters that just decide that they're going to leave. Yeah, okay, fine. But I do. There's maybe two or three too many characters in this, and I think because he realized, we have all these characters, well, I can't spend all this time, developing all these characters. I'm just going to lose interest. But I would have liked to have seen, her say or do something that would indicate that she would do this, because I don't know that a lot of people would.
And how does she know that it's going to work? It's like a gut reaction that she thinks, well, if they're pulling something from that side, I can push it back through, which I guess is what the Schrodinger's cat thing is at the beginning. Is that foreshadowing?
Oh, maybe.
Hey, if you're smart, tell me. Because I can't fucking figure it out. I'm running on the fly. Anyways, like the plot's pretty simple here, kids. Professor Barack used to debate priest who runs by one name, like Cher and Madonna, on television. And so he gets none served with an invitation to talk to Priest again. And he goes, hey, come on, check out this thing. I got this key from a dead guy. Tale as old as time. And let's go down to the basement. And why don't you bring all your scientists and specialists, bring them to the church, and let's examine this extra large container of apocalypse juice and determine like what the fuck's going on inside.
And everybody just like
a lot of bugs.
And everybody's just like, well, okay. I guess I'll
Well, he doesn't tell them.
I guess I'll flunk this class.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of situation he has at USC, but when you gather a lot of your students and you're like, hey, your grades would be greatly improved by putting your lives on the line to examine Satan under a microscope, and like a good 2/3 of his class dies in the process. I don't think that does well for his employment long term.
Yeah, I'm going to guess he does not get tenure the following year.
If he has it, it's revoked.
So, we have a lot of setup where we meet and introduce one another. Like literally there's a scene in a hallway. Everyone goes, my last name, what my specialty is. They
do that like Looney Tunes, where they're shaking hands and like, Lomax Johnson Lomax.
By the end of the evening, they've all been introduced to this, lava lamp of doom. And then Etchison, who has set up a bunch of equipment, but he has to teach a bunch of extra credit classes. He goes, I'm going to go home. He doesn't even see the thing. He just like sets up equipment, walks out the door, and immediately runs into a pigeon crucified on a couple of twigs.
And he's like, that seems odd.
I usually only see this stuff on Etsy, so to see it in real life,
we're really burying the lead here, and who plays the homeless person that kills Etchison.
Oh well, please reveal it.
It's Alice Cooper.
That's right, our old friend from Detroit, Alice Cooper, who
with clown white on his face for some reason.
Yeah, he's in whiteface, which is weird for a white guy, but he's going for it. And by going for it, I mean moving his hand and just staring upwards, which I think is the best Alice Cooper has ever acted.
And scowling a lot.
Yeah. And he wasn't even cast in the movie. He basically showed up to just watch filming.
I was going to say, he's like, hey, can I be in your movie?
Pretty much that's how it went down. He just like showed up to watch, and Cooper's like, you know what? I need a leader for all these people. Why don't you go put some powder on your face and bring that gag from your stage show where you put a microphone stand through somebody's chest? Bring that and we'll do it with half a fucking bicycle. And that's what happens. This dude gets half a bicycle straight through the chest, right off of Alice Cooper's long-standing stage show.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, his face is very iconic because the first copy of this that I bought was on DVD, and the DVD cover is not the poster art. It's the church and like a spooky sky. And it's sort of divided in half. And then the sort of dark half at the bottom is Alice Cooper's face. So for like a long time, I'm like, is that the Prince of Darkness? Like, I don't totally know. Like, I didn't know before I watched it. And yeah, he's just I guess he's credited in the movie as street schizo. So
yeah, one thing that kind of dates this movie a little bit is the reason why all these homeless people are gathered is because apparently they are all schizophrenic. Yeah. All of them.
All of them. They just all have it. Or all the ones who have it in town have all gathered around this church. However you want to play it, it's playing real fast and loose with the whole mental health end of it. And, it was 87. Okay, but still. Also, if you ask Alice Cooper what this movie is about, he will give you an answer that has nothing to fucking do with this movie. He just decided he knows exactly what's it about. And as noble as the film is, I know he happens to be wrong. Sorry, Alice. Love your work. Etchison lived as he died, a virgin with a robot. So this prompts a series of events in which individual scientists look at liquid and get sprayed in the face.
It's a tap sexual.
Yeah, just a skosh.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, if there's a Prince of Darkness OnlyFans, like you're really getting your money's worth. From what I can gather, the first here is Susan, who is, as Gina denoted earlier, is often described as radiologist, glasses, and she gets a face full of old scratch malt liquor right to the dome, and apparently it does not taste good. And after that, they have a team meeting in which we learn that Jesus was an alien like Satine. Gina, is this a secret visitor sequel?
I was actually going to bring that up because I was thinking that same thing when I was watching this. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, Jesus an alien, and there's like some weird stuff. And I was like, this feels like The Visitor. Like,
we will definitely promote, because we did eventually release that episode on Maine. So we need to promote it as a twofer.
It's a good one. It's really funny. But one of the weirdest components of The Visitor is the idea that they can't say Satan as if it is trademarked by someone. Like Coca-Cola owns Satan. So we have to call it Satine.
My favorite part of that movie is the rocking awesome theme song for that movie playing as John Huston descends some stairs.
Where it's like 70s cop show music.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Where he descends a
very long staircase
escalator that has been closed for reasons I can't imagine. And he's just trying to shuffle down, but you can also tell that he's wearing a truss. So, like, good for him for making it down those stairs. But it's a tough shuffle, and it's treated like this is some sort of, TV cop show level foot chase. Like TJ Hooker is going to burst into it in any second. And it's just really him hoofing it after a 9-year-old with an attitude. Going back to the score just a little bit, Carpenter is famous for his themes. He's now basically become a on and off again touring musician, just creating original themes rather than making movies that would go with it. And I think he's much happier that way. And I'd rather have a happy John Carpenter than a miserable John Carpenter. That being said, there is a portion here when we're transitioning from the first act to the second act where the music sounds a lot like the Valerians theme from Space Mutiny. It's just a lot of like, oh boy, I just need some ladies wrapped in scarves touching, things from Spencer's Gifts in the middle of this. I know Space Mutiny came after. Space Mutiny is copying Prince of Darkness, but, still. And then we get a scene which Dennis Dunn makes has anyone ever told you you could pass for Asian joke? And I'm like, oh, that's a hell of a line. Wow.
And she just could not look more disgusted at him.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I'm with her. So the next person to get it is Mullins, who's played by the insanely named Dirk Blocker. Of course, most people will now know him as Hitchcock on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or perhaps you're like me and you instantly recognize him from Poltergeist as the guy who can't transport beer on his kid's bike well. But he takes a neck snapping from Susan, and eventually he will take a chopstick to the eye after being sprayed in the face by soda.
Oh, I love that. I love that that's his, we're getting distracted by spraying soda in his face.
This is a possessed demonic zombie.
He thought it was more Satan juice, and he turned to get some of it, and then turns out no.
No, how would you like a face full of Fago and right in his face? And that's good enough for him to get a chopstick to the eye, and he instantly collapses. So, Victor Wong knows his biz. So who am I to get in the way of it? We then cut from his passing to Frank. Frank, a character who sexually harasses a married woman for no particular reason. And also the guy who's primarily known as the person who says, "This is caca."
Yeah.
I love that guy. I love that guy.
He's the visual effects guy on this film. Like,
Oh, is that
he's setting
right?
up all the computer stuff. He was just cast off of basically a coordination meeting. And so Carpenter looks across at him and says, "Hey, you're walking that bald biz up front and sexual harassment and back hairdo. How'd you like to get scissored to death in a parking lot by a woman and then turned into a bug announcer?" And he's like, "Okay, sure." So long as they're separate paychecks, I'm into it. But it's a hell of a sequence.
His thing when he comes back as like the bug man,
yeah.
And you alluded to it in your intro there, I have a message for you and you're not gonna like it. Like that it feels like Satan is this sort of bratty kid in a lot of points in the movie. Like he says that, and then later when Lisa is or earlier when Lisa's translating things and typing them up, and like one of the message pops up like, "In fact, you will not be saved." Like this sort of like, "Well, actually, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong." Like it just feels like a bratty little brother.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick. He's kind of one of those 80s little brothers in a teen comedy.
He has daddy issues. I mean, it's sort of like, I got to get my dad back. Just like me and Satan are very, very simpatico.
You have a lot in common with Liquid Satan. So you've got that going for you. It's a hell of a sequence when he gets stabbed to death. And then they're just like stomping on some bugs, which I don't think some of them are real and some of them aren't, but they didn't kill any bugs in the making of this, which I find hard to believe. But they set up a rig later on when he makes that announcement of a collapsible body where his one leg goes all bug and his hand goes all bug and then his chest bursts open with bug. And he just kind of collapses like a Jenga game with bugs in it.
The two things I love in this is he's got that really gross kind of wet sounding voice when he's calling out.
Yeah.
And then later, when Dirk Blocker shows up again, his head's kind of hanging to the side because his neck's been broken. And I'm like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
It always makes me think of like Sin City has its problems, but a scene that has always stuck with me is after Benicio del Toro's character is killed off, he has his throat slashed, and Clive Owen is trying to get rid of his body and imagines him waking up and talking to him, and he like his head keeps like swinging around and like flopping down. He's got this like fucked up voice and all because it's like, I guess that's what someone would sound like that they tried to talk and their throat had been slashed. And it's just so like I'm glad that they remembered those little touches. Like, okay, he's technically alive, but his neck has not healed itself, so his head's still all slumped to the side.
And that scene in Sin City, the only one filmed by Tarantino.
Right, exactly.
He's a guest director in the middle of that movie, and all of a sudden it takes a detour into a long conversation with a dead guy. Then you learn Tarantino directed. You're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So the next two of our many scientists who happen to get it is Lisa. She can translate many biblical languages. She dresses like The Rock in a lot of beiges. And she's not exactly against making out with Susan. But she ends up with she gets a facial of demon juice, and she's on the other side instantly. There's a lot of glossy close-ups of drool in this movie.
Yeah, like I said, it's I don't like to read between the lines, but it's pretty sexual.
Right, I agree with you. Dennis Dunn in one of his "I want to get out of here" rants when they're looking for both Mullins and Susan says, "I hope they're both boffing. I hope they went to a nice Chinese restaurant. If you want to go to a nice Chinese restaurant in downtown LA, I suggest Yang Chow. Order the slippery shrimp. It's excellent."
I'll make a note of that.
You should. Did you know that Prince of Darkness passes the Bechdel-Wallace test?
Interesting.
I did not.
It does. It absolutely does. It features scenes in which women talk not about a guy. Unless you consider the Prince of Darkness in that column of liquid a guy.
I mean, yeah, technically I would say.
but they're also talking about each other and how they feel. So they're talking about stuff that isn't Guy or Liquid Satan related. That is the one nice thing about having a certain amount of women in the movie, even if their characters and several of the dudes' characters are slight, like at least they're human beings to a certain degree.
Yeah, and it's a fairly, I would say it's a fairly diverse cast too. Like it's not just a bunch of random white people all crammed together. Like there's a nice bit of diversity in races and also ages. Like it doesn't feel like it's just like if you were to make Prince of Darkness today, they would all be young, pretty people that there's no way they are science students.
Right. They would all be 25 playing 21. And
yeah.
Sexy as hell. Every bit of them symmetrical. And like all of them would have their shirts on.
And they would be there not because of some science study, but it would be to win a contest on TikTok or something.
Sponsored by Dangetainment. That's a Halloween 8 reference, everyone. Oh, God. When are we doing Halloween 8, Gina?
The people demand us to cover Halloween. I guess it's going to happen sometime in the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, give yourself some padding there.
Well, listen, here's the deal. Like, we learned from some of the lesser Friday the 13th that, like, if we prolong something we don't like, we just get angry about it. And we don't, like, we're not into that. We're not into endlessly making ourselves suffer. And when I think about trying to talk about Halloween 5, I just shake my head until it falls off. I can't really handle it. Whereas at least 8 has, a kung fu fight. That's a Halloween movie, Gina. And also it has Busta Rhymes drinking red wine. Listen, I don't know if he's a red wine connoisseur. I just like drinking red wine on the job. Doesn't seem like a Busta Rhymes sort of thing. So I guess he's really playing a character there. So let's get back to our endless list of cast. We have Calder, and he's a microbiologist. He has an amazing voice.
I love Calder, and I feel so bad for him because he just looks like he's just tormented over what's happening to him. Everybody else is just sort of going along with it. They're Kiss, Knights in Satan's service. They're fine with that. but Calder seems like he's crying and like he's sort of alternating crying and like this like hysterical laughter and I just feel so badly for him.
He's sweating so hard.
Oh my God, he so is.
He really is. He's constantly wet once possessed.
Sweating the Satan out.
Yeah, I think his scene is when he's possessed and he's singing. Was he singing Amazing Grace? And as he comes up the stairs and is like laughing and then cuts his own throat, and it's like, man, that is. I think I would lose my mind if I were there in that moment.
He cuts his own throat with a chunk of wood that he takes out of a chair. It's really tough. Like, that is not an easy way to go, y'all. Here's a preview for Choose Your Own Deathventure. I'm not going out like Calder. That is not fun. And then we come back to Kelly. Kelly, believe it or not, just in the rule of threes, is also connected to Magnum P.I. She played Magnum P.I.'s mom.
What?
I'm not fucking with
you.
Wait, what?
Wait. She's about
in a flashback episode.
Oh, okay. I was about to say because she's like the same age or younger than.
Yeah, no.
I was gonna say she's about 30 here.
Right. Yeah. She's also dressed like a new wave preschool teacher. I don't understand that outfit fucking at all. Can anyone explain what she's wearing? It's
no.
matching. The top and the bottom match. It looks like a pajama set that you would give to someone for a sleepover. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they are like, camping out. I mean, I'd wear my jammies.
Sure.
If I was going to be up all night, you got to be comfortable, man. You got to be comfortable when you're carbon dating, a flask full of Satan.
Absolutely. She receives a bruise early on.
A bruise.
A bruise.
Blue oyster cult symbol or something.
And she's like, oh, oh yeah, I bumped into something. What?
And like all she wants to do is catch some shut eye, but nope. As soon as she lays down, she gets a real face full of St. Patrick's Day green beer.
It's like this is the same as like if you get a concussion, they say you're not supposed to lay down and go to sleep. If you bump your arm near some liquid Satan, don't take a nap.
No, it's not a good sign. But I guess that makes her the chosen one. And so she becomes the new vessel for liquid Satan. In a scene which we watch an entire fountain of it go in both her mouth and eyes. She don't need those.
And for a little while she looks like she's about 9 months pregnant.
Yes.
I guess it's a belly full of Satan. And then he apparently peels off an entire layer of skin off her body.
Yeah, she develops a real skin condition after this. She should see somebody about it.
It just looks painful.
Yeah, it's a simple enough effect, but it does look really good. Like I feel very unnerved by her every time she's on screen, especially when she's looking in mirrors and her eyes are really big. I'm just like, oh, that looks so gnarly.
In the middle here, Dr. Paul Leahy, who has a hell of a mouth trumpet, gets a straight dose of Lucifer lube to the face, just as Donald Pleasance sees it happen, goes, I'm out. He just goes into a boiler closet. He's like, nope, too much for me, everyone. I can't see this, can't be a part of it. And he just hides. And he hides until the end of the movie.
That's what I love. And then he's like, I did it. I see.
I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
I just happened to be trapped, quote unquote, by Kelly's telekinesis, where she shoves a closet or some sort of bookcase up against him, but not enough to really hold him up against the wall. It kind of like touches his shoes and he's like, I'm frozen, everyone. I can't move.
I mean, he's got to have some good forearm strength to be able to just chuck that axe from a pinned position.
It's true. We do see him take a couple swings at a fully possessed Kelly. He takes off an arm. He de-arms her and then decapitates her, to which she just picks it up off the ground and plops it back on her head. Like, yes. That ain't going to work. I'm a Mr. Potato Head now.
I kind of love that too, because it's like, oh yeah, you're fighting Satan. I don't think you can just decapitate his vessel and then it's over with. Like, I love that it's just like, all right, we did it. And then she just puts it right back on, like, no big thing. Let's keep going.
Yeah. We spend a little bit before she's back into action. I think this is the only lull in the movie where there's that, like, Brian attempts to escape in an alleyway and you're kind of like, Brian,
yeah,
sweet,
that scene just feels like it's kind of pointless because he jumps out and then they start encroaching on him and then he climbs back in and it's like, you didn't need that. Like, you probably could have just assumed that they were going to be out there.
He falls down. It looks like he hurts his ankle and then he has no plan. He has no plan. What was his plan where there's people on either side of that closed off alleyway? What was he going to do? What was Brian's plan?
I have to say that, like, having gone to the actual church and walking around, like, you could walk through the alley and everything, and they had little placards set up with photos from the movie and like explaining what scenes were filmed where. And even though there were people around, that alleyway is still very creepy because it's got a high wall on one side and you're essentially just trapped in that little space. And it's pretty unnerving. So, like, I don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like if you go there, you're like, I would not want to be boxed in here by a bunch of houseless people who are in thrall to Satan.
Yeah. So basically, Kelly wakes up, tells Lisa and Susan, go kill Dennis Dunn. I'm sick of listening to him.
I mean, really,
She kind of cracks the door a little bit, but not all the way. She's like, you work out the rest of it. And then it takes forever to rescue Dennis Dunn. And Brian comes up with the excellent idea. I'm going to remove all these blockades that are keeping the demon zombies out. And I'm going to go rescue him myself. And that gets a character named Lomax killed. Lomax, a character in this movie.
Like I said, there's might be too many characters in this
That's
movie.
the only guy you're just kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot that guy was here.
Right.
He gets killed, and I'm like, who is that again?
Yeah, the only scene you really ever remember him from is when they introduce the giant jar of liquid, and he's the only one who crosses himself, and that's it. Like, that's Lomax's character.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up because to kind of figure out a way to insert this in here. But for a movie about the devil and the involvement of priests and all, nobody really relies on religious symbolism to try to repel this supernatural force. I mean, yeah, when Donald Pleasance throws the axe at the mirror, he does yell out in Latin, but like nobody's like holding up crucifixes, nobody's like do anything like trying to find if there's any stashes of holy water left. It's it's like it doesn't even occur to them to try that.
No, I mean they're doing all this on sacred ground. So I'm like, none of that fucking matters. Like, it's all kind of window dressing is what Donald Pleasance kind of says in the middle of the movie. Like, we were selling a product.
And maybe that's
all of this is hokum.
And maybe it's because like they're scientists, and ultimately it seems like, I mean, maybe this is just my interpretation, but it seems like the movie kind of comes down on the side of like, this is all like not religion. This is just like weird aliens and monsters. And
that's true.
There is no
true.
religion that's going to like stop this. This thing lives in another plane of existence, and Jesus came from space, and like we're just telling you that it was because he has that speech about how they sort of reframed everything, like the Catholic Church reframed everything so it made man kind of the center of it all, and that like it was a battle for man's soul as opposed to, oh yeah, there was this weird, powerful creature that was wandering the earth for millions of years, and his son is a liquid creature, and our salvation that we were put up on the cross is from space, and it's like, oh okay, yeah, none of that means anything.
Yeah. It's just Franco Nero trapped in a room full of 9 to 12-year-olds who are bald. Like, it's just as stupid as that. One of the things we kind of learn here is that these anti-zombies have like one liquid shot in them. Like, when Dr. Paul wakes up, he tries to get Brian, and Brian like zigs and zags out of the way of it, gives him a clip under the jaw, and he's like, oh, you got me. And that's all he's got for the rest of the movie. They only got the one shot in them to bring you over to the other side, with the exception of Susan. I guess she got more. Who's to say?
Yeah, she got the brunt of it, I think, at the beginning.
So as we stated earlier on, we're basically driven to a showdown. Once Kelly is up and awake, she tries to finger every mirror she can get her hands on until she finds one that's just right. And she tries to bring dear old dad over from the Mirrorverse over here. And Catherine makes the choice that she's just going to gang tackle her. And then Donald Pleasance lobs a scimitar like axe at it, breaks the mirror, and bye-bye, Catherine. Hope you enjoy quote unquote life on the other side, and we're all saved.
I honestly would have loved it if Kelly had tried a little harder to pull Satan out of the little compact mirror.
Yeah. Just I think they had enough budget for a hand, Gina.
Just like, tugging one finger, and you hear like a this noise, and like, oh, come on, Jesus Christ.
I would love, I know we're basically at the end of the movie, but I would love to talk a little bit about those transmissions. Because I think they add, I think that's part of like the thing for me that like creates this weird eerie mood.
Yes.
Because as the characters are like napping, and they're waking up from naps, but as they're waking up, they're getting these weird dreams, and they're getting little bits and pieces. And obviously as the movie goes on, they get more, you see more of the dream, or you get more of the transmission. It's like supposedly this transmission that's coming from the future, and they're talking to them in a dream because they don't have the technology to send a message properly because it's going back in time or whatever. And I just, man, those things are so unnerving and strange.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's probably my favorite parts of the movie. And also for me, I have very vivid dreams. And you know, if an alien race or, you know, the alien Satan worshipers decide they were going to communicate with the Earth, you know, I'll probably be like my brain will probably be a big old, you know, satellite dish for that, because I have very weird dreams, very vivid dreams. So anytime I see, like, you know, really unsettling dream sequences in horror movies, they always stick with me. Like another one is of The Exorcist. That's another, you know, legendary dream sequence. But this one, yeah, the repeated, you know, everybody's having the same dream. That is very creepy.
I agree. It's also like one of those examples of the first time I can remember quite seeing a full tilt, you know, found footage style sequence in a movie.
Yeah.
So its influence goes pretty far and wide as far as that's concerned.
I also like how
effective.
before the very last transmission, the shadowy figure that's coming out of the church looks like the Master from Manos.
It also looks like the fallen angel from Fear No Evil. We're once again talking Fear No Evil here on the show.
We will continue promoting those episodes until people actually give them their due.
Everyone enjoys a blousy antichrist.
But I love how like it changes, you know, over the course of the movie, and then at the very end when we get that last dream and it's Catherine coming through. And I love your idea of that you mentioned earlier of like basically we didn't know who the sort of vessel for Satan and the anti-God were going to be, and it's like, did they make it happen? Did the people sending the transmission back to stop it actually influence it to happen and cause, you know, Catherine to be the one who is there and like creating the end of the world, basically?
Right. Or is that just Brian's new nightmare?
True.
Like,
yeah.
Is he projecting that? We don't know. And this movie is not about giving you answers, so I doubt we ever will, but it fucking works. It works.
It does.
So what is left for us now is to choose our own death venture. And that is where we decide of the deaths portrayed in this movie to these characters. If we had to choose that way to die, which one would we pick and why? Up for bid, we have die of old age clutching a box. Alice Cooper impales you with half a bicycle. The Lucifer's loco right into your mouth, and then you're thrown out a window eventually. Get your neck snapped. Filled to the brim with Satan's slushy. Stabbed by half a scissor and turned into bugs. Take a hell shot plus defenestration. Cut your own throat with a broken piece of wood. And have a long, drawn-out hand-to-hand combat sequence with Brian. Or jump into an anti-God portal. Josh, you're our guest. I choose you to go first.
Man, there's so many. Like I guess that's part of the reason there's so many characters, because there's so many different ways for people to die. I think I'm gonna go with Frank's death, just because I loved how it was filmed. I loved the giallo aspects, the long shot of the woman running, the close up of the scissors moving, and like him getting stabbed and then turning into bugs and being a little like petty child. You're not gonna like it. I think I'm gonna go with that one.
You're okay with turning into bugs, because that's a real turn off.
Yeah, I mean, we're all gonna be there eventually, so.
Well, way to bring it down, Josh. Gina, what say you?
You know, we so rarely have a character that just gets to die peacefully in their sleep. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take that one.
You're going to die of old age clutching a box?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what that guy's been through, but you know, let's assume he had an okay life up to that point.
You're probably going to, have to, lead a priestly life up until that point.
Well,
so.
You spent your life as a sentinel, basically, keeping eyes on the demon portals. So,
well, you're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real toughie for me, but I think I'm gonna go with the Alice Cooper impales you with half a bicycle, and then your mouth spurts with a bunch of Twizzler juice. It's probably painful, but what a way to go. I mean, Alice Cooper's in all that complicated white makeup. I think it's top notch. I get to die with a Walkman on, something I've always wanted.
Listening to Alice Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. Before we go on to plugs, I just want to say last episode we did ask people to do some reviews, and lo and behold, people did review the show on iTunes. And I just wanted to say thank you to Hockey Laura 2, who says that her favorite death in the movies that we've covered is Jason's sleeping bag beating, which is a common refrain. But she also loves the deep fried face death in Sorority Girls in the Slime Bowl Ballorama. And then Carol Ezzy also enjoys the show, in particular Dish by Dish. And then the first episode she ended up choosing was Black Christmas 2005.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. And there are people who love that movie. We're not amongst them, but we do enjoy the mid-century modern furniture in it. And if you would like to write a review, please put in there what's your favorite death scene of any of the films that we've covered or haven't, and we'll talk about it here on the air. That's our solemn promise to you, the Kill by Kill listener. Josh, we have one special announcement that we've collaborated on. We're going to have a t-shirt shop at TeePublic, everyone. And you've designed our main t-shirt selection.
That's right. Yeah, it's a play off of your logo, your current cover art for your podcast right now, and I hope folks like it, and hopefully we'll have some more designs there soon enough.
Yes, I think people will like these somewhat limited first offerings, and then we're going to expand from there. We're also going to have a Steamboat Jason design that we have from a fan of ours, JS Comics. And it's really great. Please check it out. Just tpublic.com/killbykill is where you will find it. And listen, people, Josh needs this money. So please buy these t-shirts. And we hope that it's everything that you want. If there's something in particular that you would like us to include in the future, please let us know. Josh, where can people find more of what you do outside of our podcast artwork?
Yes. So I am a co-host of a show called PredictoCast, where we predict a movie storyline that we know nothing about. It's a lot of fun. We're between seasons right now, but we should be coming back very soon. So check us out wherever you get podcasts. I also have another podcast called Hot Diggity Dog, where we watch and talk about some of the worst dog movies that you've probably never heard of. Gina has suffered through more than her fair share. And it's a lot of fun as well. So yeah, check me out on either of those. You can find them wherever you get podcasts.
Do it today. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television at thespool.net. Some recent reviews I have done are False Positive with Ilana Glazer, which was quite good. By the time this goes up, I will have seen and reviewed the highly anticipated Werewolves Within, which I am very excited about. I am also involved in a little side pod project with our friends Joe from Horror Queers and Jen from the Losers Club. It's called White Ladies in Crisis, in which we are talking about the Apple TV Plus series Physical, episode by episode. So that is in process now. And you can also find me on Twitter under Porcelain72.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Of course, you can find us on all the internets. Please rate and review us. Next week, we'll have Dish by Dish. It is a special combo episode. We will be talking about episodes 5 and 6 with our old friend Bo North. So if you're following along on a weekly basis, you'll need to watch 2 episodes in advance of that. Of course, there are harder assignments than watching 2 episodes of Hannibal. And then we'll be back the week after that with something fun here on Kill by Kill. We have a fun episode coming up in which we'll be reviewing a TV movie, which was also based on the same thing that Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It is based on. And that will be interesting. So that'll be our Patreon episode. for June. And that pretty much does it for Josh. And for Gina, don't worry, folks. The body count will continue. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.